Welcome to this first episode of a podcast called hcai, or a conversation about hcai. So my name is Mattias Rost, and together I'm here with
alongside.
And who are we? My name is Mattias Rost. I'm a senior lecturer in interaction design at the Department of Applied IT at Gothenburg University. And what do? I do research in human-computer interaction, but I also have a strong interest in artificial intelligence. And I think to me, artificial intelligence or machine learning or whatever you want to call that is just a technology, just like mobile phones are a technology or blogs are a technology or anything is just a technology. So how can we use that for different things? Who are you, Alan?
Well, I'm Alan Seid. I'm an associate professor of computer science at the University of Gothenburg. And I work on personalization, recommender systems and such. So systems that adapt to users, to what users want them to be.
Thank you. Okay, so then the question is, why are we talking?
Well, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of buzz about AI and AI for people and how AI interacts with people, how people work with AI. We've seen Ben Schneiderman's book on human-centered AI, and we've seen educations, programs, courses, lectures, everything on human centricity of AI and how AI interacts with people. And we thought we'd have a conversation about humans and AI.
Humans and AI. Okay, good. Have you been involved with humans or have you been involved with AI?
A bit of both, I guess. In my line of work, I've been using AI to build systems for people. So humans and AI. So trying to use AI to figure out what people want and to deliver content to people through AI based on what people want. So I guess I've been working in this field for a long time without knowing that I was working on human-centric AI or humans and AI. I was just simply working on the stuff I've always been working on: personalization, user modeling, and so on.
Okay, so that's interesting, I think, because it feels like that's an answer a lot of people could, I could say that I've been doing that. Like whenever I've been using something that I could characterize as AI, then I could say, oh, well, but I've been human-centric, so I've been doing HCI. But I feel like that's a little, that's cheating a little bit, I think.
But is it really? So a thing that I've reflected on in the past years, and especially when I moved back to Sweden after having lived abroad for a number of years, the AI community, at least back then in Sweden, was very focused on industry applications of AI. So how you optimize manufacturing processes, how you manufacture it, how you improve combustion engines and so on. And that's using AI and machine learning, but not really with a human perspective, I'd say. It's not for end users. It's AI for the purpose of something else which doesn't really interact with users or humans.
Okay, so that's good. So now we're trying to figure out what's not HAI then. So what kind of, because you mentioned systems before. You've been doing systems. Is AI a system? Like when you were talking about recommended systems, is the whole system AI, or what's the relationship here between system and AI?
Well, I guess it uses AI, right? So it's a system that has a bunch of different features, and one of them is the use of machine learning to deliver something.
Okay. And if you use AI in manufacturing, I'm sure there is a system there as well.
Of course there is, but it's I guess for me the difference is whether you're designing or planning a system that will interact with humans, with users, or whether it will interact with other machines, or whether it will optimize some gas consumption in a car engine. So that's not really user-centric or human-centric. I would say.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, let's just take a small step back. I guess this is sort of kind of the idea with this recording, right? With this podcast, is to kind of try and figure out what HCI is. And for me personally, I could sure give a definition out of my own head, but I find it more interesting to try and reason about it and figuring out and to question things, right? So in this combustion engine, right? So this combustion engine is probably used somewhere, like in a car, and that car is driven by people, around people. So I mean, there's humans here.
Of course, but I guess it's how abstract you want to go about it, right? So everything is in the end used by humans, but I guess as the end consumer of a system, you're not really interacting with the manufacturing processes that produced the item that you're interacting with. And for me, this human centricity of AI is about the end consumer, or at least close to end consumer, interacting with systems that use AI, not necessarily interacting with something that in the manufacturing chain had AI optimize something.
Okay, so because we mentioned Schneiderman, did we?
Yeah,
already?
we did.
We did mention Schneiderman. So what is he saying about this?
Schneiderman's saying that we should have systems that use AI for users. So AI is simply a tool that can help us build systems. It's not really humans and AI. We're not really interacting with AI as in with other people. We're using AI to deliver, to improve our processes, to improve our designs, to improve our things.
Mm. I think, to me, he also talks about how that perspective can affect the development of AI. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I guess so. It still is. I mean, it still comes down to the level of abstraction. So, where do you want to have the AI focus? How far down the line towards the end consumer, from the base components to the final product? Where does AI come in, and where does the interaction with the user come in?
Okay, so is there like the development of AI? Is that happening in parallel to work in HCAI, or is it more intertwined than that?
That's quite an interesting question, and off the top of my head, I would want to say that these are sort of in parallel, right? Because the tools that we see being used for the end consumer products, these have been researched by machine learning researchers, or like proper, the people that go to NeurIPS, the people that publish at ICML. It's the type of papers that you see, or the type of solutions that you see in papers that trickle down to consumer products in 10, 12 years. And obviously, we wouldn't be able to have these sort of end consumer centric AI solutions had there not been development in this sort of core machine learning field prior to this, right?
Mm.
So it's all intertwined, but as an end consumer, you're not really aware, or you shouldn't even be bothered with like what type of algorithm, what type of solution that is actually delivering or interacting with you. It's just the fact that there is an intelligent system that somehow is interacting with you, is helping you, is giving you support. That's sort of the key here, right? So that's the human-centered aspect of it, for me at least.
Oh, help me understand that. So are you saying the user is not aware that there's an AI?
Well, the user doesn't have to be aware of it, right? It's just a product that they're using, or it's just a service that they're using, and whatever is driving that product or service shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be compulsory for the user to know the inner workings of it. As long as it works well and delivers what it's supposed to deliver, it helps the user in their actions, in their tasks.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. So let's go back again to this question about parallel or intertwined. So sure, I mean, we've obviously had AI development for, the past, 50, 60, 70 years. And there hasn't been that much talk about hcai until fairly recently. So obviously there's been AI development happening. But the question is now, with this kind of, new focus on, or parallel focus, if you will, on hcai, should AI development happen in parallel? Should it happen independently of work in hcai?
So if I would rephrase this question and put it in a bit of a different field, say, should development of new electrical engines or new batteries, should it be so that the productification of that, should that be done intertwined with research in physics or chemistry? There's a very long line between developing the algorithm or researching the algorithm, looking at what new transformers, deep learning, whatever, how that works, and the actual final product. So should these things be intertwined? Well, perhaps, but not necessarily, right? I mean, these things happen. So it's like with all basic research, right? We do basic research, and we're at a point now where AI is basic research. Like the algorithmic development could very well be seen as basic research, whereas the productification of it is just like in any other industry. So we have these research findings that we then 5, 10, 20 years down the line can put into products. The one doesn't happen without the other. So they're intertwined, but they don't happen hand in hand.
Okay. So would you then say that HCI is sort of the product design of products using AI or applied AI?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, and now you're making me think. I wouldn't say it's a product, it's higher up in the level of abstraction, right? So it's a different level of abstraction. It's a different perspective on things. You have a PhD in human-computer interaction, right? And I have a PhD in computer science. So we could argue that human-computer interaction is the productification of computer science, right? So this would be sort of a parallel here when you're talking about, is human-centered AI the productification of AI? Well, in the same sense that hcai is a productification of computer science then.
But I was thinking more in terms of when we try to design something using AI. Like, is HCI applied AI? Like a particular stance on applied AI?
I think applied AI is what happens in industry, right? So where people put to use the actual algorithms that are being developed. So that's not necessarily at the forefront of things, right? I think that currently with human-centered AI is that this is where a lot of things are happening. There's a lot of unknowns here. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out. I don't know if it's applied. I mean, in some sense it is, because we're applying AI to these things and then trying to figure out how they affect our lives, how they affect fairness, accountability, transparency, explanations, blah, 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 right? But it still is, it's not applied in the sense that it's a product or a final product. It's applied in the sense that we're taking research from a lower level of abstraction and putting it a bit higher up to see how does it affect our users, how does it affect our processes, how does it affect everything.
Okay. So then do you think that development or work within HCI is affecting development of AI?
That's a difficult question, and I think I'd be naive if I'd say no, right? Because obviously, much of the things we do in computer science in general is driven by user needs, driven by the things that we think are possible, and we're trying to attain them. So, the type of research that's being done in sort of basic AI obviously is driven by, how can this be productified further down the line. It's a redevelopment or further development of existing algorithms or existing concepts, and obviously we see this. We see this in the big companies, right? Meta, Amazon, Google. They have basic AI research which isn't put into production today, tomorrow, or even in 2 years. It's going to be put in production a few years down the line, because they know that these things will have an effect and an impact on their product. And here I'm just guessing here, but I'm assuming they have hcai type of people who think about where will these new algorithms, new things be, where will they be able to productify them.
So you think it's the HCAI people who think about products more than the AI people?
Yeah, I think so, because I think, if you're into the sort of basic AI development or algorithm development, it's not necessarily about the use case. I think it's about driving the theories forward.
Okay. But okay, so a follow-up question would be, do you think that HCAI should affect the development of AI?
Probably.
And if so, how?
If we go back to the to the similarity of if we're building a car, should the development of a car, should the designers of a car have a say so in how physics is being researched to improve materials and so on? Yeah, probably, but maybe there's probably a few steps in between, right? And I think it's the same with product developers and core machine learning developers.
Okay, so if we follow that kind of car manufacturing development analogy here, one way I could see this could work then would be that the development of the car could be to just tune it to be faster. So if we have a direction where we're trying to develop engines in order for us to go faster, and at some point in the beginning we couldn't move very fast, and there would obviously be a lot of efficiency gains if we could move increasingly fast, right? To develop goods further, to move people faster. But at some point, that speed is going to be, dangerous, right? And of course, we can still continue that kind of development and make cars go faster and faster and faster. But if we start looking at, there are people sitting in these cars, and these cars are driving around people and other things, all of a sudden perhaps we start seeing that, just focusing on speed here might not be what we should be doing. Maybe there are other aspects. Safety for people in the cars, how do we increase that? People outside the car and other things, sort of the environment. And then, of course, also, what is the effect of getting faster cars? Well, all of a sudden, the fuel efficiency might be going down, right? And what's the impact on the environment? Okay, so are there other things then we should start focusing on? That comes from I guess, taking that car and development of the car engine in a bigger perspective. And so I think if I understand you correctly, is that how you see kind of how HCAI could and should impact the development of AI?
That's a very good interpretation of my not as accurate analogy as I would have wanted to have. But so I guess so what it boils down to is the governance of things. So just having faster cars isn't really what we're after, or we might be, but we still need to have governance and rules and regulations around that. And HCAI is where those things come in as well. So we see the EU is pushing an AI Act. We have states and the federal government in the US is doing similar things. We have the Chinese government who has issued policies on how personalization systems should work, what they can do, and so on. So we see these things, these rules and regulations coming more and more, and that's also a sign of maturity in the field, right? So AI is mature enough now for us to actually need to think of how we should govern this. And this is, I mean, we can just think back to, what the internet was in the 90s, when you could do anything and everything. And as technology matured, we needed to figure out how to govern it, how to set up rules and regulations around it. And I think AI in the last 10, 15 years has matured enough for us to really start thinking about the governance and what should we be able to do, what could we be able to do, and how should we reason and think around these things. We've seen this with things like the FACT conference. So the trend overall in the community in the last 5-6 years has been, around fairness, accountability, transparency, ethics. We've seen things like explanations becoming more and more important. We've seen the governance, and I think hcai sort of encompasses all of that. The human perspectives on AI. It's not more compute aspect of AI. It's not just more GPUs and more RAM. It's how do we govern? How do we think? How do we structure our thinking around products and services that use AI or run AI or help users with AI.
Okay, so it has more to do with the use of it, more to do with the applications that AI is used in.
For me, yes.
But okay. So and do you think that shouldn't affect the development of AI? Do you think that AI should be left alone? It should be it's kind of the basic science around it. That should be like physics. We shouldn't be affecting what we should know about the natural world because we can make atom bombs.
Now you're making it sound very black and white, right? And
in that black and white mess, there's nuance.
Yeah, of course. So I think this is the end. We need to sort of find ourselves in this analogy of like AI actually being basic research. So the type of research we're doing in basic AI is not super different from the type of basic research we're doing in other basic research fields, and the way that higher levels of abstraction affect basic research. That's also how we probably should be reasoning around AI and the development of new machine learning models, new AI, whatever. So it's not just the sort of the span of what's happening in AI from core math to the end user product. It's there's a huge span of things, and obviously these things interact and affect each other, but the same way that physics, chemistry, product manufacturing does. So it's I think it's time to sort of sit back and reflect on how should we think, reason, and govern the developments in the various levels of abstractions of AI.
I think it's I think it's a good analogy with the basic science and that sort of thing, and especially with physics and chemistry. But I think there are some possible issues with it. I think, and that is like AI and a lot of engineering stuff is the the science of the artificial. We are creating it. It's not natural science. We decide which direction we want to go and the direction of development and what we want to create. So I think maybe it's difficult to know exactly where one thing starts and the other ends, and vice versa. Like, so if we look at the discussions now with this kind of AI uproars and calls for stopping development of AI, it's one could ask the question here, like, are these calls to stop the development of AI, for, the 6 months pause of developing GPTs that are more efficient, more bigger than something, is that a call for stopping the development of applications, or is it a call for stopping the development of the more, the underlying technology? Like if it's AI on one side and applications of AI on the other side, which
I think it's a call to stop and think, and I don't want to. This is just my interpretation of these things, so I don't want to claim that anyone is saying this, but my interpretation is that this has been an extremely good stunt to have people stop and think about these things, to have governments and organizations to really stop and reflect and become aware of that these things can become problematic at some point. So it's been an extremely good thing, not necessarily because it stopped any development, just it made people think. We've seen these things in mainstream media. We've seen these things everywhere, like the talk about, let's stop and think and consider and reflect. And that's for me, that's been the main reason for this, right? It's like now everybody is talking about it. People not working in AI, people not working in computing, people not working in research are aware of these things and actually are starting to have an opinion, starting to become a bit informed. And that's been sort of the key here, I think. As a tool for that, it's been super, right? Because now everyone is aware. We've raised awareness about AI and the risks and the possibilities. From that perspective, super, right? And I guess that's it.
and is that hcai? Is it possible to ask it like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I think it probably it has aspects of it, right? So what these call for actions or call for stops are asking is not to they don't talk about the productification of things maybe, or the human aspects of these, but further down the line, in the various levels of abstraction, obviously it affects this. It has human-centric AI perspectives to it, because we're talking about the dangers, the risks, the threats, the possibilities, and how things should be governed and regulated. So in that perspective, it has, it has something to do with hcai, but it might not be, central to human-centered AI.
But do you think HCAI, as we can get into what that actually is, it a discipline, is it a field, is it a let's take that question after, but is like the existence of the term HCAI, whatever that might be, the people involved in it, is that the reason for this sort of call for a break? Or would this have happened without HCAI?
I think HCI is just, it's still like the term, so the human-centered AI or human-centric AI is still a fairly new term. I think just recently it's grown quite a lot, but this, the FAT or FATE movement has been around a bit longer. So I think that these thoughts, these, principles, they would probably have appeared anyhow, just maybe in a different form, and without human-centered AI as the moniker for the entire thing. I think here actually Ben Schneiderman's book probably helped quite a lot with establishing this as a term for all of these things, because it's a bit broader than the FAT and FATE terms are. It reaches a bit further, I would say. Just recently, I searched on the ACM Digital Library for human-centered AI, and the oldest entry found was from 2015. So this is still reasonably new. And I also I didn't look into the papers from 2015, 2016, but I have a hunch that they might be talking about a bit different things than what we, or at least I, mean when I talk about human-centered AI. So I think it's become a super good term or tool to raise awareness about these things, but I think we would have gotten there anyhow with faith and fact and so on.
So it's more like a term that now kind of an umbrella term that we can all kind of gather under.
Yeah, I think for someone who's not in computing or someone who's not in the field where you and I sort of live and work, the fact and faith terms have less of a meaning than human-centered artificial intelligence, because we know what human-centered is, or at least everyone has an understanding of what that is, and by now everyone has at least an opinion of what artificial intelligence is. So it's a simpler, easier term to reach a broader public.
Okay, so I think maybe that we now have a little bit better idea of what hcai is.
Do we really?
Well, I mean, I think so. So let's get back to the idea with the purpose of this podcast, right? It's really, I think, to me, to figure out what is hcai. And if we had already now solved that, this would have been a very sad podcast series with one episode.
Yeah.
So I don't think we are ever going to uncover what is hcai. But I think this has been a really good starting point in trying to figure out what this might be.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is have a discussion, a conversation about human-centered AI and what it is and what it means for us, for everyone. In the coming episodes, we'll be talking to other people, we'll be talking to each other, we'll be discussing literature, papers, things in the media that are relevant to or for human-centered AI.
Look forward to it.
Me too.